Alrighty, y'all ready for this? This is just for you, Karens. Ooh, some Taco Bell came up on that one. Anyway, so many of you guys have sent stories in, and I'm so thankful and I'm so excited to be able to tell your stories. But there's a line, and I try to do about a story a day, give or take. Sometimes it gets hard. I have 4 kids. But just bear with me, I'll try to get to your stories. Anyway, here we go. We were stationed at Fort Bliss about 9 years ago. My first experience living on post. Never again. I had befriended some of the neighbors, other wives, on the request of my husband, now ex. We were all outside, and one of the kids had asked if my son could come over and play in the yard with them. I was with a good friend I had met when we first moved there with our babies. I let him since we were all outside. Within 10 minutes, he comes barreling across the street screaming. I couldn't understand what he was trying to say, so I told him to go talk to Dad, who was super good at calming him down. When he turned away to go to his dad, that's when I noticed blood on his head and his back. My heart dropped just reading that. So my friend grabbed my baby and I scooped him up and ran inside to my husband. We were trying to calm him down enough to let him tell us what happened while cleaning him up. Well, the neighbor's husband runs into my house and immediately gets defensive. Why do they always do that? And tells me, oh, he's fine. It was just a small dog bite. So he tries to get me to think that it's not that big of a deal and to not take him to the hospital. While this is going on, my husband is actually holding me from attacking the guy because I'm so pissed off about the bullshit he is spouting off. As you should, Queen. After about 5 minutes of me screaming at this guy that he's a moron if he thinks I'm not taking him, I grabbed my son, asked my friend to stay with the baby. I left my husband there to try to figure everything out that happened. We get to the hospital. We are ushered straight back to tell them what happened. Then the MPs show up, and I tell them everything that happened. I am not putting my son through a rabies shot. So after 3 stitches, it went all the way through but 1 layer of his head. We are sent home with antibiotics, and the MP gave my son a stuffy. Still has it 10 years later. That's really sweet. So we get home and there is an MP officer writing a citation and telling them that their dog is on quarantine until evaluation and determination. That is such an MP thing to say. If he is allowed on post. Well, the dog disappeared within a week. Imagine that. Let me add real quick that a week before the dog bite happened, I had to call the MPs because another neighbor left her kids home alone, ages 6 months, 6, and 7, for over 3 hours. I actually made them come to my house and wait because the baby was screaming and she needed a bottle and a new diaper. The mom was the one in the army, if that matters. Her douchey boyfriend left them alone. Back to the crazy story. But 2 days later, after the dog bite, CPS and CIT shows up at my house and claims that they are there to investigate child endangerment and neglect. So of course I let them in, because I'm utterly confused as to why. I look outside and 4 of the neighbors, all wives, are standing there pointing at my place and talking. So in retaliation, they all came up with this plan to try to get us in trouble. Such a military spouse thing to do. Some of y'all are just wild. Well, joke's on them. Nothing really came of that besides a 30-day requirement for a case in Texas to stay open with CPS. Over the next 2 weeks, they then called in complaints 6 more times since that didn't work. Vicious pit. She was a 6-month tiny hound mix. We actually had the same MP who was awesome and helped me with my son. He walked up and laughed since I was outside and said, "Is that your violent dog?" Next, my husband was riding his bike and drinking, but he passed all his tests. That my kid stole his own bike. A raging party that was a super load. We were actually all watching Sons of Anarchy. That he was beating me. And finally, instead of coming to my house for whatever the last complaint was, I had 3 MPs show up and apologize to me and my husband. Then walk to 3 of my neighbors' houses and cite them. Girl, that is karma at its finest. And 2 of the husbands got in massive trouble for their wives' behavior. As they should. And the girl ended up getting kicked out. Y'all, these are real life stories. And I am so glad that you guys are letting me tell them. So if you have a military wife story and you want me to tell it, go to my Instagram. The link is in bio, or my username is Mrs. Fry 0725. Send me a DM of your story and I'll tell it. I can tag you or I can leave it anonymous, whichever you want. Thank you guys so much for supporting me on this journey. It's been a lot of fun. Stay tuned for more.